Of the Electoral Commission of Nepal, representative of the Inter-Party Women Alliance, as well as the Valerie Julliand, and all of you distinguished guests. It's a great pleasure to be here, and I have the feeling that I am surrounded by a lot of very interesting women leaders. And not only women, actually. We are also surrounded by men who seem to be committed to have women come to the table. So that's excellent. And I have to say, you're not only leaders in your respective field, you are champion of women in politics. And this is exactly what we want. And this is exactly what we need. We need champions of women in politics. During the next 2 days, you are going to discuss the law, you are going to discuss the constitutions, you are going to look at what is it that holds women back, but also what are the opportunities to have women in politics. And this is what is important, that second part. What are the opportunities, and how can we make sure that women enter politics in their full rights as citizens of the country and in the world? So one way that has been discussed is actually mentoring. And it's very interesting because if we look at the trajectory of men in politics, men actually use the mentoring a lot. Men support men. They have contacts, they share their contacts, they have a network, they have education, very often, more often than women. This actually puts men much ahead of women on the starting line. And actually, in a country like my predecessor mentioned, it's a country where we have more women than men in Nepal. And yet, women represent only 29% of the parliamentarians. So there is room for improvement. And we need to make sure that there is a mentor behind every woman. And I want to ask all of you today to mentor a woman or a girl, either for that person, that girl, that woman to become a full-fledged citizen, to be registered to vote, or maybe to become a candidate in the next election. But please, each of you, mentor a woman or a girl. Because the reality of women and girls in the world is that they are very much more likely to be left behind. They are actually more likely to drop school, never going to do superior studies. They are more likely to face violence in their home, in their country, in their work. They are more likely to be illiterate. That's why we need champions. We need champions of women in politics. We need all of you. Also, women are traditionally compounded to their role of caretaker of the children, of the elders, of the sick, the keeper of the home. But actually, they are also the breadwinner in most places when their husbands have migrated to find a better job. So when they do all this, how could they find time to do politics after they take care of everybody else? And actually, you see, when I hear women and men who defend that women should respect their traditional role and stay at home, I see that as a conspiracy to make sure that they never enter politics. Because if you keep women at home, then as I say, they have no time to dedicate to politics. So we must encourage women, all women, to take an active role in politics. And as I said, this active role can be in voting, or it can be in being a candidate. Why not? This is possible for every woman in this world and in Nepal. So empowering women is actually an issue of changing attitudes, changing mentality. We have to carve a space for women, the same way that men have carved their space. And we have to recognize the ways that preempt them, but we also have to recognize the ways in which they can enrich the political landscape by being part of the decision-making process. Quotas and all these measures have helped immensely to have women come to the table, and we must continue. But actually, what really would make a difference is when all the knowledge is put into practice, when transforming policy into a reality, that is to say, making sure that all what is provided for equality is actually implemented. That is very important. And we need to have women who want to come to the table. And for that, once again, they need to be supported by everybody. So actually now is the best time. Now we have local election in Nepal. We have a new constitution. We have a new federal system. There is not a more perfect moment than this one to make sure that women enter politics in Nepal. So let us put women in the driver's seat. And you see, I have to take the word of my predecessor. Women want to be in the driver's seat with the men. There has never been an intention of women to kick all the men out, in case some of you were scared of that. Women want to share power. And that's the logic of a society. A society is composed of men and women, so therefore power should be equally shared between men and women. We know that women political leadership is actually fundamental for gender equality and for sustainable development. We've said it and we've repeated it, and I repeat it today. Without the empowerment of women at all levels, there will be no sustainable development. There could be development like what we have seen over the last decades in Nepal and someplace else in the world. And this development is not sustainable. This development actually has good side, but has a lot of very negative side owing to the absence of women at the table. So therefore, if we want sustainable development, we need women at the table. And actually, when we look at how many women do participate effectively in politics, only a quarter of the parliamentarians in the world are women. Only 7% of heads of states are women. And only 5% of heads of government are women. Aren't these figures absolutely abysmal? In Nepal, women need a husband or a father to have a citizenship certificate. Isn't that a contradiction in terms with the constitution of Nepal? That is a great constitution. It recognizes the rights of women as fundamental rights. And yet, in the same constitution, it says that women need a husband or a father to get a citizenship certificate. So it means that as human beings, in this country, women cannot get a citizenship certificate on their own rights. That is a contradiction, and that is a violation of rights. So if we are serious in having women come to the table in politics, change that law of the citizenship. Because without a citizenship certificate, women can't vote. Without a citizenship certificate, women can't enroll to become a candidate. So I don't want to enter into the conspiration theory, but once someone can wonder, when there is such a strength in putting women in the forefront, in having quotas that are excellent in the Constitution, and at the same time we have this provision on citizenship, at the same time we have a school of thought that women should stay at home and take care of their children, isn't it another way to keeping them away from politics? So, despite Nepal's commitment to gender equality and women's empowerment through policies and frameworks such as the CEDAW, the Beijing Platform for Action, the MDGs, the SDGs, what we see is that the implementation of this commitment is actually very slow. Actually, the struggle of Nepali women is a long history of struggle. It's at least 70 years, if we look just behind, starting from the 50s, but I'm sure it has been the same struggle long before. So with the support of the UN agencies, the voices and the concern of women are being brought to the forefront. And in Nepal, there has been great progress being done. And here I want to name a few. There is the Nepal National Action Plan 2011-2016 on the implementation of the UN Resolution 1325 and 1820 that has actually helped increase women's participation in political and state structure. That's a good achievement. There has been as well the adoption of the Gender and Inclusive Policy, Strategy and Action Plan in 2013 by the Election Commission that has made attempt to guarantee that 45% of participation of people from excluded groups and remote geographical region which includes women as well. That is a great achievement. The quota system, which I mentioned, that has established that it is mandatory to have the representation of women in committee, council, task force formed by the government. Great achievement. And as I said, there has been the Constitution of Nepal that actually guaranteed the rights of women as one of the fundamental rights. That includes women's equal property rights, women's special opportunity to education, health, employment, and social security, and the political participation, which I mentioned, with the 40% at local level and the 33% at national level. Yet again, there is an inconsistency and there are contradictions. The Constitution recognizes the right of women as fundamental rights. But right now, there is a draft that is ongoing, a revision of the Civil Code, that is actually going backwards on these very same rights that are in the Constitution. So I call on the legislators, and on you, Madam Speaker of the Parliament, you, the legislators who are working on this, make sure that you don't adopt a text that contradicts what the Constitution says. Because currently, the draft of the Civil Code does contradict and brings the right of women backwards. So, in short, we have to encourage and support every woman and girl to enter in politics. And we have to make sure that in this upcoming election, they are present at all levels. This will be through their full and equal participation at all levels. We want women to be heard, to be listened to. That is important. Because women cannot be and are not an afterthought to moving a nation. They will move the nation, whether we want it or not. Whether it is today or tomorrow, women will move the nation. So I really look forward to the conclusion of this conference. And I want to just remind you that the United Nations stand behind every woman and every girl to ensure their rights. So therefore we will continue to salute and congratulate the government of Nepal whenever they do such important steps as the one they have done now and all the work that has been done by the Electoral Commission, which I want to salute today as well, and the work of the Parliament in adopting all these very important laws. We will be there to say that it is great, but we will be there and we'll be here to say when there is no respect for the rights of women. We will be here to say loud and clear when there is discrimination. You can count on us to continue because this is our role to support the development in Nepal. So I want to finish my words to thank the Electoral Commission for its great work, all the institutions of Nepal that are committed to bringing women to the table. I want to thank the donors who are supporting us in organizing this conference and many of our activities related to election, and in particular the European Union, Norway and Finland, the Inter-Party Women Alliance, as well as, let me have the word correct, Saja Abiyan, and all of you for your commitment. You all took a photo saying, I commit, and you wrote something. Make sure that what you wrote on that paper, you live up to it. Thank you very much.